Explanation of the Garden of Eden. It seems people, namely Christians and Catholics, struggle with understanding the allegories of the Garden of Eden. As we already know, the story is focused on reincarnation of the soul and the sin of the flesh, and both good and evil, so let's start with that. From an ex-occultist point of understanding and using my knowledge as a typologist, I will explain the same way I would to a teenager, so basic but I find it helps, and I will break down the very texts and you can read along and follow the story. This is the Dead Sea Scrolls translation only, using typology. I will show you the first, the very text, second, the context, third, the subtext, allegory, but first, some context. 25th degree, Night of the Brazen Serpent. 1. Good. Mercury gives it the faculty of expressing and enunciating what it thinks and feels. 2. Evil. To Mercury, fraud, the architect of evils. 3. Also, there are 4 gods, which can be seen on just one page. God with a capital G, the Lord God, the ever-living God, and the serpent. Genesis 2:7, the ever-living God afterwards formed man from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the life of animals, but man became a life-containing soul. Genesis 2:19, therefore the ever-living God, who had formed out of the ground every animal of the field as well as every bird of the skies, took them to the man to see what he would name them, and whatever the man, with the living soul, called them, that was their name. Typology. You must understand this. Man is a soul container. This is the most important verse in the whole Bible. The importance of the soul is mentioned not only once, but twice, and the man is a container for the soul. So, understand we have 2 aspects, the soul and the body, which are both very important to the whole point of the story, the foundations of the book of Genesis and the book of Enoch. Genesis 2:8, the ever-living God then planted a garden in Eden, in the east, and there he placed the man whom he had formed, and out of the ground the ever-living God caused to grow all the trees that were beautiful and good for food, as well as the tree of lives, in the center of the garden, and the tree of knowledge, of good and evil. 1. Typology. The Son made the tree of knowledge, and made the tree of lives. It's important you understand that God, with a capital G, or Lord God, did not make the tree of knowledge, or the tree of lives, or made the serpent. Genesis 3. Now the serpent was more impudent than any of the wild animals of the field which the ever-living God had made. 2. Typology. Basic transliteration. The Son made Mercury, or the Son made the planet Mercury, or the ever-living God made the serpent. Now the serpent was more impudent than any of the wild animals of the field which the ever-living God had made. So he asked the woman, is it true that God has said, you may not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman replied to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God has said, do not eat of it, and do not even touch it, lest you die. But the serpent answered the woman, you will not die, but God knows that at the time you eat of it, your eyes will then be opened, and you will be like God, acquainted with both good and evil. 3. Typology. The serpent said, is it true that God has said, you may not eat of every tree of the garden? First, it's a very basic transliteration. The serpent is curious that God said do not eat of the tree, to mean Saturn, or Jupiter, or the sun. Second, the serpent was more impudent than any of the wild animals of the field which the ever-living God had made. The animals, or the beasts of the field, is the zodiac. Now do you have understanding, the true meaning of that verse? Genesis 3:6, tree was good for food, and beautiful to the eyes, and a tree, stimulating to the intellect. She took some of its fruit and ate it, and gave some to her husband with her, and he also ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they became aware that they were naked. They accordingly joined fig leaves together, and made aprons for themselves. 4. Typology. Okay, again the Dead Sea Scrolls say things Other Bibles don't. The tree itself, a tree stimulating to the intellect, originally, the unity, or trinity, of a human soul, the body and mind, is the Garden of Eden. The apron is made of lamb's skin. It has many meanings. Example, to represent innocence. The apron covers the genitals, the area of the body of which is creation, which is the Garden of Eden. Now do you have understanding, the true meaning of that verse? Genesis 3:8. They then heard the sound of the ever-living God, moving in the garden in the breeze of the day, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God, among the trees of the garden. But the ever-living God called to the man, saying, "Where are you?" 5. Typology. Okay, in order to answer this verse and make sense, I will have to explain the occult. First, example, this is an apron. Notice that the color is blue, the color of Jupiter. Second, notice the thin, gold band, that is to mean the sun, at dawn, or dusk, when the light is strongest, or weakest. Third, this verse is to mean the ever-living God, the sun, moves in the breeze of the day, and Adam and Eve hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God, Gabriel, under the trees, at dusk. Why dusk? Because as the sun sets, and Lord God, Jupiter, Gabriel, is present in the sky, as the evening star. Fourth, Adam and Eve hide themselves among the trees, in the grove, because they are using the tree of knowledge and the tree of lives, both in secret, of both of the gods, Lord God and the ever-living God. Because remember, the serpent is, and has been, pulling the strings, in secret. Now do you have understanding, the true meaning of that verse? Genesis 3:8. And he replied, I heard your sound in the garden, and perceiving that I was naked, I hid myself. Then he asked, Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded that you should not eat? And the man replied, The woman whom you gave to me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate it. Why did you do that? The Lord God asked the woman. And the woman answered, The serpent deceived me, and I ate it. 6. Typology, basic transliteration. Again, the Lord God is Gabriel, or Jupiter, and it is, Lord God, Gabriel, is very annoyed that Mercury, the serpent, that he told man to eat of the tree, not God with a capital G, Saturn, or the ever-living God the Sun. Genesis 3:14. The ever-living God, accordingly, said to the serpent, Because you have done this you shall be accursed more than all the cattle, and more than all the wild beasts of the field. You shall crawl upon your belly, and eat dust all the days of your life. I will also cause antagonism between you and the woman, and between your progeny and her progeny. He shall wound your head, and you shall wound his heel. 7. Typology, the ever-living God, accordingly, said, So the ever-living God is accordingly responding. And now the ever-living God the Son decides to speak, and is also very annoyed with Mercury, the serpent. Understand, the woman is the mother of all life. She is the creator of the progeny. She controls and has full influence over Adam and the progeny, and will cause antagonism between her and the serpent and her desires. Don't underestimate the power of a woman in regards in the occult. And she shall wound his heel. This is spoken in the Scottish Rite, which I did a video called Gods of Good and Evil. 26th degree, Prince of Mercy or Scottish Trinitarian. To prevent the light from escaping at once, the demons forbade Adam to eat the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, by which he would have known the empire of light and that of darkness. He obeyed. An angel of light induced him to transgress, and gave him the means of victory. But the demons created Eve, who seduced him into an act of sensualism that enfeebled him and bound him anew in the bonds of matter. This is repeated in the case of every man that lives. Typology, she shall wound his heel. Adam has been seduced by Eve. Eve has his heel. She controls him to live forever and forever be consumed by the flesh and all physical matter. They both surrendered their soul into damnation of reincarnation of spirit and flesh. Now do you have understanding, the true meaning of that verse? Genesis 3:16. But to the woman he said, I will increase your sorrows and your joys. You shall give birth to children with pain, but your love shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Typology, basic transliteration. The knowledge of reincarnation has been severed. She, the woman, will give birth with pain. She will no longer have control or power over him, the man, and also, she will no longer have any control of her progeny, of whom she gives birth to. He shall wound her head. Now do you have understanding, the true meaning of that verse? Genesis 3:20. The man then gave to his wife the name of Eve, because she was the mother of all life. For Adam also and his wife the ever-living God made clothing of skins, and dressed them. Typology. Now we have the skins, or lamb skins, of innocence. Genesis 3:26. The Lord God also said, Now the man was like one of ourselves, acquainted with both good and evil. Therefore, it may be, that he will stretch out his hand, and take also of the tree of lives, and eat of it, and live forever. The ever-living God, consequently, expelled him from the Garden of Eden, in order to cultivate the ground from which he was taken. So he drove out the man. 8. Typology, another basic transliteration, and 2 points. 1. The Lord God, Gabriel, also said, Now the man was like one of ourselves, acquainted with both good and evil. Gabriel is stating there is more than one God, by saying like one of ourselves. 2. Again, it's the Lord God, Gabriel, who is annoyed. In fact, he simply won't shut up. He is now annoyed, yet again, for the third time, that man can live forever, and requests the tree of lives to be removed. In fact, the Lord God, Gabriel, is annoyed with anything mankind does within the occult, period. Genesis 6:3. Consequently the ever-living said, My spirit shall not call to man forever, for he is sinful flesh, but they shall have 120 years. 9. Typology. Consequently, another basic transliteration, the Son, due to the situation, the ever-living God, consequently, has no choice, and has reduced the lifespan of all races of men the sons of God, and man the son of the ever-living, to a mere 120 years. Thus the flesh is limited, and reincarnation will be very difficult. Now do you have understanding, the true meaning of that verse? Then to Adam he said, Because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, Eat not of it, I will set the ground apart for your cultivation, in sorrow you shall eat from it every day of your life. It shall grow thorns and briars for you, but you shall have the plants of the field for food. In the sweat of your brow you shall eat bread, until you return to the ground, from which you were taken, for dust you are, and to the dust you shall return. 10. Typology. The ever-living God the Son, has made sure, Adam and Eve won't be coming back, over and over, and reincarnation will be very slow, and painful experience, and Adam will eventually return back to the ground from where he came. Now do you have understanding, the true meaning of that verse? 11. Typology. So, who was responsible for this complete and utter mess? 1. Good. Mercury gives it the faculty of expressing and enunciating what it thinks and feels. 2. Evil. To Mercury, fraud, the architect of evils. Another basic transliteration, Mercury, Hermes is the problem, and the cause and the aspect of both good and evil. It is Hermes, who is the serpent, who is Satan, who is the devil, who deceived the whole world, including you.